Thinking about doing a 1VD swap on your 80 series? Well, stick around because we're going to go through exactly how much it cost me to do in the shed. All right, so this episode is always a fun one because I remember doing this for the 45, and yeah, it sort of didn't shock me because I was always keeping track of what it cost me, but I reckon it shocked a lot of people, exactly how much these conversions are to do, and considering especially that I've done basically the whole conversion in the shed at home. So I am not paying workshop labor or anything like that. So anyway, it's always an interesting thing. So thanks for tuning in, and let's get into it, like what I did with the 45 build cost video, I've broken it down into certain categories. Now, what I do, obviously, because I'm a management consultant, tracking costs is what I do on a daily basis, so I can keep up to date of what's going on. So I've got my Excel spreadsheet, so I literally down to every cent that I spend, I can keep track of it. Now, some of you might just go, I don't even want to know. It's just a money pit. I just don't want to know. But, some of you out there like me, you want to know, just so that, it's a talking point for nothing else. Like, at the end of the day, you don't do these conversions to make money or anything like that. You do it for the love and the passion of it. So, anyway, how I break it down, I've got a couple of different categories of spend to try and help, if you're wanting to do a conversion like this yourself, just so that you can sort of pick and choose, I guess, the costs of what I've done. You might go, oh, no, I'm not going to spend the money on that part or whatever. It's being able to sort of pick and choose what you want. But so the categories that I've got are conversion parts, engine, like the actual buying the engine, maintenance sort of stuff, new engine accessories, which I'll explain in a sec, rebuild parts and upgrades. So they probably sound a little bit confusing at the moment, but yeah, it does start making sense. So I guess the first things first is the engine itself. Now, I bought this engine, so it's a 1VD from a 79 series. It's a non-DPF version, so pre-DPF version. Now, I bought it from a mate who had it just sitting in his shed off a car that he wrecked. And so I bought the engine, gearbox, transfer, and what accessories it had on it. So it still had the standard turbo, it still had the intercooler, it still had, the fuel filter, like it ECU, throttle pedal, everything like that. Now, I bought it as a complete set, and I got really well looked after. So thanks, Matt, for this. $5,000 I paid for that. Now, you're probably thinking, how the hell did you get that? How did you manage that? Now, to put it in perspective, that exact combo of what I got is at least 20 grand, right? If you were to go and, find something on a wrecked 76 or 79 or something like that, you're starting at 20 grand, right? Just for what I got. But I got it for 5. Now, what had happened though is that car was in an accident and it had pushed the whole front of this part in. So there was a lot of stuff on there that was no good, right? So, I had to replace, oil lines and intake pipes, and there was a lot of stuff that I had to replace. So whilst I paid $5,000 for the whole lot, I then went and spent probably another $8,000 in replacing the parts that needed to be replaced. So now we're starting to get up to sort of the more accurate numbers of what it is. But yeah, at the end of the day, $5,000. Now, when I pulled the 1HZ out, the 1HZ had only been rebuilt in sort of, 15,000 Ks. So I was able to sell the 1HZ as a block for $5,000. So in terms of engine to engine conversion wise, I'm cost neutral at the moment, right? $5,000 to $5,000, cool. But as I said, with what I had to do on fixing what needed to be fixed. So when I say fixing what needed to be fixed, I replaced, and mind you, so some of this you might actually want to do as well. So again, this engine probably had about 200,000 Ks on it, and it had been through mud and all sorts of shit. So when I went through and pulled it all down, I replaced things like starter motor, obviously, because, they're pains in the ass to get to. So starter motor, I bought 2 alternators, one for a new one and then a spare one for like when I go to Tassie and that. Aircon compressor, oil lines, dipsticks, idler pulley, oil pressure sensor, harmonic balancer, power steering reservoir, radiator fan, fan clutch, and then obviously put new injectors in it as well. So I just went back to the standard Denso diesel injectors, fan pulley and that. So if you think about it, you might be able to sort of remove, I guess, that part of the cost. But yeah, in all, with, I guess, the engine accessories side of things, $8,000 is what it cost me to bring it back up to spec with all the bolt-on parts and that. So if you add 5 and add 8, I've spent $13,000 on the actual engine itself, right? Bearing in mind that I got $5,000 back for that, swapping out the 1HZ. Now, I've run the 79 series gearbox and the 80 series transfer case. So I've still got an 80 series gearbox and a 79 series transfer case to sell. So maybe I'll get back another $1,500, $2,000, whatever I can get on marketplace for those, because they're still in good order. So yeah, I've still got those to sell. So that'll then bring that cost back a little bit as well. Now, because I was pulling it all down, then I went through the engine rebuild process, right? Because obviously I snapped the glow plugs, and so therefore it forced me to do, effectively a top end rebuild. So the bottom end I didn't touch, just did a top end rebuild. Now, that top end rebuild, I've put down, it's probably about $4,000 is what I spent on that. So if I look through the parts, we're talking gasket kits, head gaskets, the head machining rebuild and glow plug extraction, seals, timing chains. I had to get a new rocket cover, again, another one of those ones that was broken. So yeah, effectively with the engine rebuild side of things, the engine rebuild itself cost me $4,000. So yeah, so I think that's pretty good. Again, because I could do it myself. So if you're having to send the engine away to get looked at and rebuilt, obviously you then need to add labour on top of all that. So we'll talk about the labour side of things in a second. That's just to get us to spec. So as I said, I replaced the injectors, so I've got new injectors. So if you're going to do this, I would suggest, you probably don't need to go to the extent of rebuilding the engine, but you should at least go to the extent of replacing, obviously, the maintenance parts. So I've got $700 in maintenance parts, and things I'm talking about that are like belts, glow plugs, water pump, thermostat, oil pickup. That's a big one, a little plastic oil pickup that goes in the sump. Things like that. I shouldn't need to touch this engine now for another 200,000 Ks at all. And that's the reason why I've done it the way that I've done it, is I've done it right, done it once, spent the money now while it's all apart. It now should give me maintenance-free running for a while now. So, engine-wise, we're now up to speed. Now it's trying to get it into the actual 80 series itself. So now I'm talking about conversion parts, and I'm also talking about upgrades. So now obviously, if you've been tracking the build, I've had a lot of help from Hagen at Off Track Concepts. Now he's a smart dude that has basically 3D scanned in, you know, the engine bay and how everything fits and all the rest of it, which started out as a little bit of a hobby for him. And it's now turned into a business, which is great. And so I've been able to tap into his knowledge and, you know, abilities to be able to produce conversion parts. Now, I've reached out to him, obviously, because I was a bit of a hybrid, so I was, you know, going up and welding my own airbox and welding the fan shroud and doing the engine mounts and everything like that. So, you know, there's a little bit of it's a hybrid sort of version what I got. But he's now got kits available for anyone who wants to do these conversions off the shelf. And so if we go through what is included in the conversion parts, which I actually haven't written down here, engine mounts, airbox, fan shroud, ECU mount, fuel filter mount, what else have we got? Crossover pipe, exhaust, so the exhaust from the back of the turbo that goes down the passenger side and then loops over the back of the transfer case. So that, power steering brackets, fuel solenoid mounting brackets, just a whole heap of, you know, different little things. Throttle pedal bracket, just a whole heap of different brackets. So when we're talking conversion parts, anything to try and make it fit into an 80 series. Even all the little notch things to notch out the chassis for the turbo clearance, the strut bracing. There's a lot of different parts that's included in that kit. Now that kit is worth $11,000, $11,350, right? But that is shipped to you, and you then can bolt it in and weld it in and do all your sort of stuff. But the actual parts themselves are ready to go, right? So that's pretty cool. The other parts of conversion that I've got on here, aside from off-track stuff, is the bonnet. Now, I bought this bonnet skin, so it's a 79 skin with, now, what's funny is that the bonnet itself only costs like $600. So the actual tin itself, the outside of it, was only $600. But what was funny is that the scoop, the plastic scoop, the insert that goes in the front, that was like $500. And then this plastic molding that goes over the intercooler, that was $500. So, yeah, so those two parts there are more expensive than the actual skin itself, which I just found quite funny. Now, there's a mob that I only just found out the other day that have got one ready to go. So I spent $1,600 on this, and then obviously then I had to spend, you know, hours cutting it all in and making it all fit the 80 series bonnet and everything like that. So again, it might be out of the realms of possibility of, you know, some people, but if you're willing to just spend the time on it and give it a go, you know, anyone can sort of do it. But there's a mob now that are actually making this 79 scoop on an 80 series bonnet, and you can buy it. It's like $2,000. So that might be the more viable option for you guys in the future. But in the end, what I've saved $400, but it probably cost me maybe 20 hours to do. Yeah, 20, maybe 40 hours to do. So, yeah, I'll leave that to you guys. Can't remember off the top of my head who it is now, but yeah, I saw it on socials the other day, and I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, so that's a conversion part, 79 scoop. What else have we got? We've got, now, things that you'll need to buy that you can't use your 80 series parts for. Your clutch master cylinder, right? You need a 79 series one for that. You need a 79 series fuel return solenoid. So that's that. Custom brake lines, because obviously you're changing the brake setup. So yeah, just custom brake lines, custom clutch line, fuel hoses. So obviously upgrading the fuel hoses from 10 mil to 12, and then the return from 6 to 10. So you need all those. Oh, the other thing that was included in the conversion part cost is the fuel cooler and the power steering cooler. So Off-Track provide those as well, which they're just a PWR one anyway. Nuts and bolts, custom lime, fuel hose. Then I've done up a bend as well into the front of the turbo because the standard one that I had was pretty crappy. So I've done up an aluminium bend in that. And then any sort of material you need to finish off the exhaust. Obviously, Off-Track give you the exhaust up to basically the muffler, and then you need to do the rest. So I had already had a 3-inch exhaust on it. I had to buy a muffler just to pass through engineering and that. But yeah, you need to think about that. So conversion parts wise, in total for me, it cost $15,000 in conversion parts. So yeah, we're starting to get up there a little bit now. Now the last bit is what I call the upgrades, right? So at this point in time, you could have the standard clutch and the standard turbo, those sorts of things. So obviously I wanted to go a little bit harder on that, but again, you probably don't need to. So my upgrade parts, I spent $1,800 on a clutch. Now it's a 1,500 Newton meter clutch, so I'm not going to get anywhere near that, but I went the full heavy duty clutch. Now that kit came with a flywheel and the slave cylinder, and the spigot bearing, and all the rest of it. So it's a full kit. So that's why it was 1,800. I bought a new red wheel G350 turbo, G turbo. Now that was $4,000. You could probably buy second-hand ones a bit cheaper, but yeah, I just went a brand new one. Another thing I did is ceramic coated the manifolds because of the tight clearances with everything that's on this build. I just wanted to try and save as much heat as possible, so I spent $580 on ceramic coating the exhaust manifolds and the covers. Now obviously the cover I couldn't put on the driver's side, but anyway, it got done anyway. And what I found is I've gone for long drives in this already, and like the aircon hose, the drain hose, is actually sitting on the cover, and it's a rubber hose, hasn't melted. So they're really good. I can't stress to you how cool ceramic coating is. So it's a really cool upgrade. Other upgrade parts, so the tacho correction module, which is the Dakota Digital one, which incidentally I haven't even got working yet. So that's another thing. Obviously the body mounts when I had the cab off. Turbo studs, just to be able to mount the exhaust up to the turbo a little bit easier. Sound deadener from Car Builders, and cruise control switch. And I've also included my dyno tune in there through Complete Tuning as well. So the dyno tune was 1,500. So all in all, upgrades wise, again, this would probably be an optional cost for you, 8,775. So we are now at the point where you've now got to look at your own car and go, I didn't need to replace the radiator because the radiator is still fairly new. Didn't need to replace the batteries. I did have to replace, sorry, that's a lie. I had to get rid of the battery at the front there, so then I need something for my camping setup, so I'll put a lithium battery in the back there. Now, I haven't included that cost because that's nothing to do with the conversion. So anyway, let's go through a bit of a summary now. So, summary wise, conversion parts, 15,358. Engine itself is 0 because I bought the engine for 5 and then sold my 1.8Z for 5, so I'm at 0. Maintenance parts, 703. New engine accessories, so this is rebuilding replacing all of the bolt-on parts, is 8,060. Rebuild parts, so this is me tearing down the engine and rebuilding the top end and making everything all nice and fresh, 4,096. And then upgrade parts, so clutch, turbo, tune, and everything like that, 8,775, giving us a grand total of $36,994, just under 37 grand. Now, what's not included in there is if you went to a workshop and got all this done. So, and I said this in the 45 build, it's hard to tell, it's hard to get an estimate of what it would cost hours wise for you to do versus, a workshop. A workshop's going to do it quicker because they've got, the know-how, they've done it more than once and everything like that. At the same time, I probably spend a little bit more time because it's my own car and I want it right, and I'm not saying that workshops don't do it right, but I will spend a bit more time just being precise with everything because it's my car. My best estimate, and I stopped recording, I forgot to, not like what I'm doing with the EH, I forgot to do it, but hours wise, I reckon I've put in at least 250 to 300 hours just doing the conversion. So I did all this obviously on 7 weeks. I reckon 250 to 300 hours. At $100 an hour, that's 25 to 30 grand, right? So you add 37 grand plus then, say another 30, $70,000 conversion. Yeah, it's out of the realms of possibility. Like, it's just, that's a unless you've got the coin to spend and you're willing to just, forego it, it's probably out of the realms of possibility. That's why I do it in the shed, because 37, even 37 is probably still a stretch, but it's, again, it's a money pit. So, I'm happy to spend it. It's an investment in my time and how I spend my time. So, so that's that. Now, if you were to do it, I reckon you're guaranteed up for the 15 grand of the conversion parts. That's just what it is. Like, so 15 grand for the conversion parts. You're probably wanting to spend the money on the upgrades as well. So when I say the upgrades, it's the tune, it's the turbo, it's the clutch, right? So there's 15 plus 8, so we're at 23 already. Then you've got to source the engine, right? So you could probably go to the auctions and pick up, a written off 79 series for maybe 30 grand. You could then, the accessories wise, it should be okay. You should then have everything you'd be able to need, and then you could sell off, the rest of it. So you could part out the rest of it and everything like that. I still think you're going to be up for probably about 20 grand anyway for the engine and accessories parts. So if you think I paid 5, but I then had to go and spend another, 8, 12, on rebuilding it up to spec. So I'm up to 17 anyway, right? So that's where the money is, right? It's, conversion parts, upgrades which are optional, but then getting everything like that. So I think if you can do it for 30 grand, you've done bloody well to get it to the spec to say what I've got to. So yeah, not a cheap conversion, especially considering when you could probably drop, maybe 15 grand, 20 grand on a LS conversion. which is probably the more common ones, which is probably why a lot of people do LS conversions. But for me, I wanted the diesel, I wanted the V8 diesel. I wanted to be able to trade parts between this and the 200 series, and I just wanted something that was economical, that sounded cool, that I know is going to give me 200,000 Ks of worry-free driving. So anyway, it's, as I said, it's not for everyone, but that hopefully gives you an understanding or an appreciation of, you know, it's not something you can necessarily do on a budget. Sorry, not something necessarily you can do if you haven't got the money to spend. Is the thing, and I guess that's probably why they're not a common conversion either. So anyway, that's probably enough yapping from me. So I'm actually taking it away next weekend. So just going up into the high country around the Walhalla region, and yeah, see how it goes, test it out. It's been into low range a couple of times already, you know, performs very, very well. So I'm very happy. But yeah, I'll go and do its, I guess, first bigger trip, first harder trip. And then, yeah, it's just time to go and enjoy it, I guess. So, so anyway, that probably wraps up this build series. Now, don't forget that I've got the EH that I'm going to be going back to. So make sure, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give it a like. Give this video a like if you find it interesting. Leave a comment. I mean, do you think you could do it for cheaper? Like, what are you thinking? Make sure you keep tuning in to the build series, and we'll catch you next time.